Okay, now we're going to talk about the ninth step. Ninth step is broken down roughly into 5 categories of amends that we must make. But there are some basic rules that we need to first understand. We are not making amends to be critical of those we've harmed, and therefore what the big book talks about is cleaning our side of the street. We never make them wrong. We stick to our own story, we stick to our own wrongs, and therefore it's not a debate, and it's not a matter of any finger pointing. Never, we just don't do that. Also, we are forbidden to make amends in any case where the people we're making amends to or others might be harmed by our doing so. And this can be misused as some kind of an out clause which allows us to rationalize away the need to make amends. We got to be real careful about that. Making amends is something of extreme spiritual importance. And the big book reminds us, remember, we have agreed in the beginning to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. And so making amends is that time when we get to complete our work. You say, but wait a minute, there are 3 more steps. Yes. But it is the 9th step which completes the work of house cleaning. It is the 9th step which leads inexorably to the promises and to what we also are told when we get into the 10th step, that by this time sanity will have returned. The promise of the 2nd step is fulfilled, that we will enter the world of the Spirit, become God conscious, and develop a vital 6th sense which will allow us to be in contact with our God. It is also the culmination of those steps which lead us to a spiritual awakening. The 10th, 11th, and 12th steps are those steps by which we maintain or continue to stay close to God and to grow spiritually and to perform His work well. And so when we look at the 9th step, we look at the 5 categories which are laid out. First category is the people we hated. Now, this is first because Bill or God, whoever wrote that book, I guess it was a combination of both, decided that we better get through that hump right away, because the people we hated are the people we have built up all of this resistance to ever wanting to make amends to them. They don't deserve it. Look what they did to me. Look how horrible, rotten, stinking, nasty, and dirty they were. They're responsible for all of my difficulties. That's what my counselor told me. That's what I learned when I went through treatment center, that all of my woes, all of my ills were the result of the rotten, dirty things that other people had done to us, done to me. But now I found out that that's not true, that I'm responsible. Nevertheless, I built up such a hatred and such a antipathy to this person, and yes, it's true that that resentment's been taken from me by God, but how in the world can you expect me to make amends to somebody who was that terrible? Notice that the big book does not talk about making amends to the person we hate. It talks about making amends to the person we hated, used to hate. Because, yes dear?
Where is that in here?
Where is that?
Yeah.
That's on page 76. The last paragraph on that page, you'll find it. I'm sorry, 77. I gave you the wrong page. Senior moment. I get to hide behind senior moments now because I've reached that age where I can do it. Remember, Ellie?
How dare you?
No. No, Ellie, don't get huffy with me. Remember, I mentioned that last night, too. I'm hiding behind my senior moments these days. Page 77, you see that last paragraph?
Mm-hmm.
Talks about the one we hated.
Mm-hmm.
It's not there.
Yeah. The second
Oh, okay.
paragraph.
Okay, thank you.
Do you find it?
Yeah.
The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. Got it?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
You're welcome. So now what we're going to do here is we're going to pray, and we're going to ask God for the willingness to make the amends and to give us the strength to do so. Wonderful things usually happen when we do that, because in the making of that amends we steer clear, we stay entirely away from all that whole catechism of this person's sins that we've built up over the years. We don't ever mention those. We stick to our own story, and we make whatever amends we can. And usually the big book tells us that what happens is that it works out very well. Once in a while we get tossed out on our ear, but most of the time, and many times, wounds and schisms between people that have lasted for years and years are healed, or at least there is a beginning of a healing process. So then the second part of the ninth step, the second category, is financial amends. Now, financial amends are big bugaboos for us because many of us have left town over them. You know, we've made geographics. We've hated to open our mail. We have hated to answer our telephone. We've considered all kinds of different ways of ameliorating the problem, including robbing banks and all this kind of stuff, you know, and taking bankruptcy, but somehow we never got around to that. We just left town, or we had a phone number that we changed regularly, or however we did it. And now we've come face to face with the proposition that we're going to be required for our own recovery and for our own survival and for our spiritual growth to make these amends. And so there are ways to do it. And it almost always works out beautifully. Even if we don't have a dime to begin to make payments, we go to the people and admit the debt, we admit our wrongs, and we tell them that we intend to make restitution as soon as we can. Or, even better, we have a few extra bucks, and so we put aside $5 a month for this one and $10 a month for that one, and we go and offer to make payment on a regular basis. Now, a lot of the time, what they're going to tell us, especially if the debt's been around for a while, heck, we wrote you off years ago. We already took you off on our income tax as a bad debt. It costs us way too much money to reinstitute this obligation than to just say bye-bye to you. You know, we're through with you. That's all. It's gone. Sometimes it's money that we owe to people, family or close friends, and usually they're going to say to us, oh no, just forget it. They get real magnanimous, you know. But we want to be very certain that we don't just leap all over that and say, oh yeah, okay, I'll see you later, you know. It is not for them that we make amends, it's for ourselves. One thing about amends is this, guys, we're not there to seek forgiveness from them. That's not the point at all. We're there to clear up our side of the street. We're there to be freed from the guilt. Now, it's also real important to understand that the ninth step contemplates the situation where we will not be able to make amends. As it was pointed out earlier, where we can't make amends if we're going to harm them or others. Many times the people we need to make amends to are gone, maybe dead, maybe moved away. We've lost touch with them. Now, are we therefore stuck? Are we therefore in some kind of limbo, a never land from which we cannot escape, not being able to make these amends? Are we forever foreclosed from being released from the burden of the guilt? No. That wouldn't work. You see, what God has done for us here is to bring us along a path which leads us to a place of surrender and obedience and makes us fit so that we can carry His message. So He's not going to make it impossible for us to do that. The whole answer to it is willingness. The whole answer. If I am willing to make amends, even though at the moment I cannot or maybe can never, as long as I'm willing to do so, really willing, not just saying so, but it's down deep inside, that willingness is there, then the amends are effective. Even though we can't make them, we are released from the guilt. And that's one of the most beautiful and miraculous things about this ninth step. Remember that we pray for the willingness until it comes. And if it is there, strange things happen. Just the other day, a guy I sponsor had expressed entire willingness to make amends to somebody who had moved to New York City. He had absolutely no way of knowing where he was in that metropolitan area. Could have been any 5 boroughs, it could have been anywhere. He was up there on business 3 weeks ago and walking down one of the main roads, main highways or streets in lower Manhattan, and there was this guy. Just walked right up to him. Thank you, God. He made amends standing right there in front of him in the jewelry district, with all the people running back and forth carrying their little satchels full of diamonds. Can you imagine if you were in the mood to rob banks, what a temptation it would be to see all those guys in black suits running up and down carrying millions of dollars worth of diamonds around? I often wondered about that back in my drinking days, how I could get well financially in a hurry. Now then, that's 2 parts. The third part of the ninth step has to do with our crimes, our criminal activity. This is a tough one, because there may well be warrants out for our arrest. A lot of people walk in that door looking over their shoulder, waiting to see if the sheriff's out there ready to pick them up on an old warrant. In fact, this is one of the most damaging things that happens to us, is that we don't clear that up. We go around in a state of constant paranoia and fear. And we're even afraid to find out if the warrants are still outstanding and so on. That has to be taken care of, and it may very well mean that we have to turn ourselves in and take the consequences. Again, remembering that we agreed to go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. There is a catch here, though. Many times what's happened is that our lives have changed. There may be people in our lives, for example, now who depend upon us. We may have remarried, or we may still be married. There may be children involved. There may be business associates or friends who are utterly dependent upon our continued activity in the free world. In order for us then to make that amends by going and turning ourselves in, we have to have their permission. I can remember I've had 2 people I've sponsored who were murderers and had never been caught. And one guy had been a contract killer in New York City, and he had killed 7 people. He didn't even remember their names. He was married by the time we got working on his steps, and he had 2 little kids. So we discussed it at great length, and of course this was in New York, and I think they have a death penalty there, which would have meant, had he gone and confessed, and assuming that they could find out the crimes, I don't know, there were too many ifs there. But technically, I suppose he could have been in jail and prison for the rest of his life, or executed. And so there was the wife and the 2 kids, and they had to be taken into consideration. You can imagine what the wife said when she was approaching this. Would you give me permission to turn myself in? She said, absolutely not. So what I had to say to him is what the big book says. Well, you're just going to have to live with it. Do the best you can. Now, the beautiful thing about this is that by being actually absolutely willing to do this, if he had to, if he could, he was released. And this was quite a long time ago, and he's doing very well today. Sober, he's got 2 more kids, and he's a real credit to the community. The other guy, basically the same thing happened, although he had committed some other crimes, and he did turn himself in 5 different counties in Florida for these minor crimes. And he served a little bit of time in each of the counties, but he's free of that now. But these are the kinds of things that you will run into if you are sponsoring people and hearing their fifth step. Yes, dear.
Jim, we didn't hear what happened to the first one. Did he turn himself in or did he turn himself in?
Well, he couldn't turn himself in because it would have destroyed his wife and his family. But because he was willing to do it, I'm assuming this because, of course, you're not inside anybody's head, but he's had a great life since then, and he's been a real credit to the fellowship and to the community. Now, for myself, I was made privy to crimes that a man had committed that wasn't murder or anything, but I was subpoenaed to appear before the federal grand jury to make me testify about what I'd learned from him. And so I refused to answer. So they arrested me and threw me in prison for that. So I suppose there's some risk involved in doing this stuff, but then these are the kinds of things that we have to willingly accept because it's all part of God's plan. While I was in prison, I got a chance to work with a lot of people in there. I would have preferred to do it by coming in and out. That was a pretty nasty experience. Anyway, yes?
No, I just wonder, how long were you in prison?
I was in prison for 5 months, and then I finally got to see a judge who had some understanding of what was going on. He had 50 letters from people in AA saying, what in the hell are you doing? You people must be crazy. And a couple of people came there and stood up for me, and the U.S. attorney had decided that I needed another year and a half to punish me for being such a contemptuous individual that I refused to testify before her grand jury. But the judge said, no, I don't think so, and he let me go, you know. But
did they understand anonymity? I mean,
oh no, I never said a word. They tried to get me back up there for trial, but the trial was postponed, and then that was it. So I've never heard from them since. So I wouldn't. I mean, well, no. Here's the thing. If I sit up here and I'm giving you all this stuff, right? And if I am telling you all these things that we need to do, and I myself am a hypocrite and a liar because I was not willing to live up to what I'm saying, how could I ever be here? Would have destroyed me. But that's not the real reason. The real reason is that I believe this is what God wants us to do. I mean, you know, here's the way it is. If I can say about you that you have integrity, I don't have to say anything else. And if I say about you have no integrity, I don't have to say anything else. We know all about you. And so this is far more important than being loose on the street. I mean, it just has to be. And believe me, I'm no martyr. It just, you know, somewhere along the line, you have to make a decision. It's going to be either this way or that way. If it's this way, you just have to stick with it, that's all. Besides which, I learned a hell of a lot in there. I found out something very interesting. If you're going to go to prison, wait until you get real old, because then you get to be pops. And when you're pops, they leave you alone. It really pissed me off. I didn't want to be called pops, but then I found out that was okay. You know, that's a good way to go. Okay, now the fourth category of amends has to do with marital infidelity or infidelity to significant others, or however you want to term it. There's a great tendency, you've probably noticed this if you've done a lot of working with other people, there's a great tendency to want to be shriven, to get it off your chest and let me just run to her and tell her about all these women I was having an affair with and get her to forgive me, and then we can go on. At least I get it off my chest, but now what about her? Now, the big book talks about this. In many cases, the wife doesn't know, or she only suspects. In those situations, we can admit that we have been unfaithful, but we have to be sure that we clearly indicate this is the end of it, it will never happen again, and then by our actions from then on to show that that's true. There will be a great tendency there for the person who has been injured by this to demand to know, with whom did you cheat on me? Who's that other woman? And we can't tell them. Big Book says this: jealousy is the most terrible human emotion. And to turn a jealous spouse or jealous significant other loose on the third party would be a really wrong thing to do. If you've ever had an experience with that, you'll know just how vicious and how brutal that can become. Not because the person is necessarily vicious and brutal, but because of the jealousy and the hurt and the fear that's been engendered by that. See, here's something. It was wrong to begin with. It was dead wrong to begin with, and there's no way that can be changed. So what we're trying to do with these amends is to be able to start over again. Even though we can't expect that all the wounds have been healed, we at least have an opportunity to go forward from here and to go through a healing process. And so the fifth category in the ninth step has to do with amends to family. And the Big Book tells us that this may very well be for the rest of our lives. And certainly that's reasonable. We've done a lot of damage, and we may need to just figure it's going to take a long time for these things to heal. And we read the chapter to the family afterwards, and we get a good view of that, you see. So,
I have a question real quick, Jim.
Yeah.
On number 4, the marital infidelity.
Yep.
As a hypothetical situation, if there are children involved, and it could ruin the marriage, obviously, wouldn't that be other people? Or
Yes.
So you might not tell your spouse.
Yes.
If there's children involved.
Yes. But these are the kinds of things that we have to sit down with our spiritual advisor and work them out. And we take these general principles of making amends, and we see we may have to balance the equities a little bit. But we have to come to some kind of a conclusion. You had your hand up first, then you. Yeah.
Freddie alcohol. Yeah,
Freddie.
you said something about like unfaithful and I guess disobedient. I guess not being true to God. I don't myself as God, but like my other partner. I wasn't being, and I believe it says in the book about something. I don't know what page it was. Ah, man, I'm so like, I'm at it. Not save my skin at another person's expense. So,
Right.
So that means I don't have to admit nothing to her. I just have to start all over, right? I can't. I'm not just gonna go until I slept with, with so many like.
That's true. If to do so would be to harm her, you can't do it.
Can't do it. Thank you.
Yes.
I had a question. Let's say somebody like messed around with a married woman. Would there be an amends to make to the husband in that situation? I know this guy.
You talking about Billy Bob riding around in his pickup truck with his dog and his rifle in the back window? I don't think so. Well, yes, ma'am.
I'd like to share something for the benefit of
Please do.
anybody who's thinking about making events along these lines. My husband did that with me. He told me he was in love with my best friend, blah, blah. Worst thing he could ever have done. It hurt. It still hurts thinking about it.
Sure.
It was a long time ago, and we're a very long time divorced, and he's dead. But that is the worst thing.
Did you kill him?
No. I planned on buying.
Come on, you can own up. We won't say anything at all.
I can tell you now he's dead. No, I didn't do it though. No. That is the worst thing that anybody can do to you. It is so terrible, and you never forget it, and you never get over it. And unless, I like to share this also, in these times, unless there's a risk of AIDS or some other major disease that you've got to tell the spouse, don't tell. But if there's a risk of disease, you've got to tell.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right, and the Big Book agrees with you about that. We have to be real careful in this area.
Yeah.
Probably the rule of thumb would be if she already knows all about it, then you make amends. If she doesn't, then you have to be real general about it. Maybe just say nothing. Yes.
Yeah, well, you know, do they ever use in the Big Book? I can't. Do they ever use the word like conscience, one's conscience? I don't think it's in there. Like a conscience. One has a conscience.
I don't remember
I
that.
don't remember.
I think there's one phrase, moral consciousness, but I don't remember where it is. It would, but that's not. Maybe that doesn't mean conscience in the sense that you're using it. To have a conscience, you mean? To have a moral and ethical belief system that's operative, not shut out by booze. Yeah.
It's really unconscionable to do things like that.
Unconscionable.
What you're talking about is integrity, I think. Integrity would cause you to do what I think Arnold's talking about.
Yeah. Well.
Instead of conscience, it's integrity, right? No?
Well, certainly that's part of it, but integrity is not just state of mind, honey. It's your actions. You take action which is true, honest,
Right.
goodness.
And that's conscience, too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's unconscionable when it happens all the time.
I know, but it's still unconscionable.
Okay, so it's unconscionable when it happens all the time.
Yes, it does. You know, that's a good point. It's a good point because much of what caused our discomfort and our distress was the fact that we knew what was right and what was wrong, and we made decisions based on self that went in the wrong direction. And this attributed was greatly to our sense of guilt and shame, because we knew. See, we were not powerless over our actions. We would like to think we were, but the truth is we were not. And what the Big Book talks about is making decisions based on self, and then acting upon them. And that action was dead wrong, and it was wrong when we did it, and we knew it was wrong. We did it anyway. And so that's a major part of the problem that we drag in here with us. That's a big part of our baggage. Ellie, do you have a hand up?
Yeah, my name is Ellie and I'm an alcoholic.
Yeah, Ellie.
I would say that the reason that you would not tell your spouse your actions is not to save your own skin. I mean, you may, all of you, we may feel a sense of, wow, I don't have to release that information. But it's not to save your own skin. It's actually to save your partner's feelings, to save that other person's, the trauma, the pain that person will endure. So that's something that I truly believe that you have to take with you to death, and how you deal with that, the pain, the guilt, the remorse that you may feel, that's something between you and your God. But
Yes.
you certainly cannot share that with your spouse. But it's not because you're all scot-free, because you're going to take that with you till the day you die.
Well, there's yes, but there is a imprimatur here, which is that if I am willing to do that, if I can, then I will be released from the guilt. See, God is concerned about us carrying a load of guilt around, because that blocks us from Him. So the ninth step is really designed to allow us to get free of guilt, provided we are willing to do these things if we can. But there are many circumstances where we cannot do that. And you brought up a good point, Ellie, because if you look at, let's say you're sitting down with your with your families, let's say your parents, and they've suffered along with you as a practicing alcoholic for years, and you've done all kinds of rotten, mean, miserable things. To sit down with them and then parade the horribles to make them relive all of that, can't do that. We have to make an amends which are very general. They know what we've done. To make them relive it would be to damage them, to harm them, to make them have to not only to mentally relive, but to emotionally feel the harm and the hurt which they've already suffered. So this is why it's so important before we start making amends to make a list of the things we plan to do and talk these over with somebody. Hopefully we've got a sponsor who knows what they're doing. And maybe we need to lay these out for God, and we say, God, these are the amends I plan to make. I'm not sure any of this is right. Please show me what you want me to do. That's a very good way to handle that. But there are no pat answers to this. Each individual case has to be considered separately. Yes, sir.
Hi, my name is Sharon. I'm an
Hi,
addict.
Sharon.
That reminds me of something I recently heard in a night-step meeting from an alcoholic from California. She's a woman who, in her alcoholism and in her insanity, had been stalking a man. And her amends to him was to not make amends to him.
Her amends to him was to...
To not make amends to him, to not contact. Well,
Okay. Boy, that's pretty clever. Now, don't anybody listen to that now. My best amends to you is not to say a word to you. Hey, that's good, yeah. Well, that makes sense in a strange way. All right. Have we exhausted ourselves here on questions? Let's finish this up there with the night step. There is the problem then of the people we have lost touch with, or who maybe have died or moved away. We don't have any way to reach them. We're going to make amends there by writing a letter, an honest letter. In the letter, we're going to say everything that we would say to them if we had them in front of us in person. With the proviso, of course, that if we're ever able to make this amend in person, we are willing to do so. Then there is the question of making amends to someone who has died. There are a lot of people who recommend things like visiting the grave once a year, or another amends which is often suggested. I guess it has some validity, I don't know for sure, but it kind of makes sense. That, for example, if I stole money from my folks and they're both dead and there's nobody to pay the money back to, that I commit myself to making a contribution to charity on a regular basis in their name. Or another amends that people like to make is to do community service. And they do that as a substitute for direct amends. I think the truth of it is that so long as what we're doing is dedicated to the proposition of making amends and our willingness is there, that it's going to be effective. Now then, when we look at the ninth step and the result of the ninth step, one of the things the book tells us is this. It says that the spiritual life is not a theory, that we have to live it. Now, that's pretty strong stuff, but let's think about that for a second. Compare that statement to the 12th step. What's the 12th step? Practice these principles in all of our affairs. What does that mean? It means that we are to take these steps that we have now learned how to use, and we are to incorporate them in the way we live our lives. We're going to utilize these steps as our way of life. And therefore, we are no longer theorizing about spirituality or a spiritual way of life. We are living it by living our lives in accordance with the 12 steps. That's what works. And when we do that, wonder of all wonders, we incorporate these great spiritual principles that have been around for all time into our very being, into our lives. They become the way we live our lives. The big book admonishes us that we are to carry a vision for God's will for us into all our activities. To do that, of course, we must be willing to listen and willing to be obedient. That we have but a daily reprieve, and that this is contingent upon our continuing to grow spiritually, the maintenance of our spiritual condition. All of these things then postulate that you and I will be working these 12 steps in our lives as a part of our lives for the rest of our lives. In the 10th step, for example, it tells us this should continue for a lifetime. This is not an overnight matter. It should continue for our lifetime. So now that we've reached the 10th step, 10th, 11th, and 12th steps, and we're going to look at those next week, these steps constitute a way of life which will fulfill the imprimatur of what we learned all the way back in the 3rd step. Remember that God will give us everything we need if we do 2 things. 1, stay close to Him, and 2, perform His work well. And by the time we've done our 9th step, we have become close to God. In the 10th, 11th, and 12th steps, we stay close to God by continuing to grow spiritually, by continuing to find out as it happens what's going on in our lives, to stay current with our present realities, to deal with them on a present basis through prayer and meditation and inventory, and to carry the message to other alcoholics. And by doing this, what happens to us is that we not only stay close to God, but we perform His work well. And the promise is that He will give us everything we need. And that's true. That's exactly what happens. So next week we're going to get a chance to take a look, see how those 3 steps fit in with everything else that we've already learned about the steps, how they all fit together and form this beautiful mosaic. Thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you next week. God willing, the creek don't rise. I hope you'll be here too. And who wants to do the chips for us today?
Thank you, Chip.
You're welcome. Who's our chipmunk today? All right, here we go. Chipmeister. Oops.
Any white chips?
There are no white chips. Who's got a bunch of white chips they've been carrying around?
My name's Tammy. I'm an alcoholic. If anyone needs a white chip, you're out of luck.
No, don't say it that way. I'm not sure that's appropriate.
We'll have to give you a green one today. If you need a
Come
white
on up, Slim.
3 months.
Pretty soon when I get some wet ones.
Just listen, you live up to that now, son. We'll see you back here in 30 days, and then you can turn it in.
Yeah.
Okay.
3 months.
Good going there, girl. It's all right.
This is my lucky day.
Yep, keep going. You're doing well.
6 months.
Come on, somebody just do it for the hell of it.
All right. If you haven't had a drink today, give God and yourself a hand.
Okay, who has a birthday in the month of December? A birthday. We're going to be celebrating here. How many years? 1 year. 1 year. All right. Who else? Oh, that's right, I do too. 38. Wowie zowie. Something else, huh? I don't know. Thank you, God. Let's see. Any announcements for the good of it? Yes, dear.
1 year.
Oh, well, what were you... One out of 30. That's not bad.
Well, 38 and 35 up there. You were up there before. Someone moved you down, and I was after the 38 and the 35.
Well, you see, well, it's all those paranoids out there chasing me around. They always are getting to me somewhere. Any announcements for the good of AA? Any commercial announcements? Whoopee parties, bingo parties, golf tournaments. Anything? All right, do we have any irresistible impulses? Burning desires? Let's close the meeting. Let this circle represent the unity of our fellowship. Let's have a moment of silence for those who are still suffering, and then we'll say the Lord's Prayer together. Thank you. Lord's Prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.
Keep coming back and
Some more. Some more. Let's have more money here. Hello, darling.
Here, so I'm going to count it.
Please do.
I don't think we got enough.
I don't know. There's another basket going around. Here we go. Oh, thank you, darling. How are you
My
today?
papers back here?
Yes, I did.
Oh, that's great.
They're in my car. I'll get them.
I have to add them to my memoirs.
Sure. Oh, yes. I didn't forget this time.
What's the name of this other picture?
Huh?
This one here.
Flame to the Heart.
That one.
That's all of Bill's writings for the Grapevine.
Oh, for the great.
It's a real important book.
Where do you get it?
I'll wander out and get that for you right now.
Hi, Jimmy.
I went to that 11 o'clock meeting over at the golf course over at Southwinds tonight, which is counting. Sorry about that.
Oh, I gotta find my receipt. I do the receipt.
Tracy bought
$6
coffee
short.
and stuff.
What?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, then I don't pay in back. She went and bought coffee and stuff. No, I just leave it. Oh, don't worry about it.
Okay, make an announcement. No.
Hold on, let's see what I got.
Okay. Hi folks, I'd like to make a little announcement. We're $6 short on the rent. If anybody wants to put in a little extra.
Here, I'll put in $1 and take out a quarter. And I'm going to put some pennies in there.
Yeah. Okay, you gave me one, he gave me one, that's two. Now we're $4 short. $4. Thank you. Oh, thank you, Evan. We're over. Okay. For the county, no, for this meeting, I have one here, okay. It's in the municipal office. Anybody here who would have the access to it. I don't see anybody here, no. So if you want to call it to group office, they'll be able to. Okay, right, no worries.
That's what he said.
How about if I come Saturday? Very well.
Very good. Honey. Great. I'll be right back.
Oh, I see. How are you, sir? Good to meet you. So what's happening?
That's Marty's working. I don't know if it's working.
Yeah, no trouble. Nice to see you. How's everything going?
I just came from church. I do my Sunday. I used to go to church on Wednesday evening. Which is good.
Same thing, you're working on your spirituality.
Well, yeah, no, but it was only because you really need a, you go to church, you know, it's taken away from that. I just go once a week. And actually, I would, because I go to Bible church, somehow everything is AA. It's not all right, but it's
There is a Bible, right? See, because
I'm doing the AA.
you have that Bible. I have that too.
No, that's my Bible. But what
There's a recovery Bible.
I'm at somebody.
It was given to me. I used to live in
Did we make it?
We went $9 over.
Woo!
And it paid for the donuts, the cream,
Wow.
everything that we bought today, and we still have 35 for rent.
Woo!
Isn't that fabulous?
Man, that's terrific.
Boy, everybody rushed right in.
I'm doing good, darling. How are you?
Good. How's it going?
Everything's fine and wonderful.
Good. Good.
We're having some fun today.
Yeah. I always enjoy hearing you. Hi, sweetie. A naked woman.
They just washed up and just threw money at me. That was wonderful. You know, you just tell people you need it, and there you go.
There you go. That's beautiful.
Very nice. I love this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How are you feeling?
Great, fantastic.
That new prothesis not working for you or what?
No, I'm gotta wait till the little wound heal on the side. It's bigger because I was impatient and put on the old prosthetic. The old prosthetic fits like a bowl on a Spalding ball, and I tried to put like 10 pairs of socks to fit in. But then all I was doing was just going up and down, and then.
Oh, so you're having to let that heal.
I gotta get a new fit for a prosthetic. Yeah.
That's a nuisance, isn't it?
It is. It is. It's very, it's.
Yes.
Right.
Can I ask you a question? It sounds, I'm really trying to get this.
Andy, what's up, buddy?
Tell me the difference. Like you said, between 6 and 7, because you're saying defensive character and shortcomings, it's all the same.
Yes.
So what's the difference? In 6, you're just admitting that you're ready, and then 7, you're actually asking God for help. Is that it?
Well, in 6, you're saying, I'm ready to ask God for help. In 7, you do it.
So no wonder you lump them all together.
6 is just a transition step. It's really describing what has happened by reason of working 4 and 5. That because we worked 4 and 5, we were entirely ready. That makes sense, doesn't it?
Very much, thank you. Feels better to ask the questions than I have.
Oh, I'm glad you did. You did what? I don't know. I never asked him. I believe I had heard someplace it was an accident, a car accident or something. He's a really nice kid.
Call this court to order.
Order in the court. Bailiff, clear the room.
Bring in the prisoner.
Bring in the prisoners.
En masse.
Bring the jury in.
Hang on.
Somebody want to ask the stragglers out there to please wander back in here. Hey, we got donuts and I didn't know it.
Want a couple?
No, I can't. I can't eat and pontificate at the same time.
We'll all be showered and powdered with sugar, right? That's right. You with your accent out here. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's take our seats now, please. We made rent and we even made donuts today. That was good. You guys lucked out. We were going to pass the basket again. As I told you last week, that's very bad for me because whatever left over I get from my salary. We don't have anything left over today, so. But I think I'll still be back.